On this episode, we explore VR, AI, and training in higher ed AV. All that and more on EDTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
EdTech episode 109, To Infinity and Beyond, pushing the boundaries of higher ed AV. Hello, AV friends, and welcome to another episode of EdTech. As always, we have our panel of awesome AV, higher ed AV professionals. Ernie Bailey.
Good afternoon, Aaron. How are you doing?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
And we have with us Rob Raspberry.
How's everybody doing?
And Scott Tyner.
Hi, Aaron, and the rest of the group. Glad to be here.
And today we have a special guest joining us for this episode, the Higher Ed AV Award-winning AV Professional of the Year from Moravian University, Britt Yenser. Welcome, Britt.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about what you do over there.
Sure. So I am Director of Event Technology at Moravian University. So I take care of all things live event AV needs.
And how has it felt so far since InfoComm and being awarded your AV Pro of the Year award?
Yeah, it's weird. So, I mean, it's awesome. I'm super appreciative and blown away. But not to be like a weird, like biblical person and make it weird, but like even there's a passage where Jesus says like a prophet is not respected in his own land. And like, I feel that way sometimes where it's like, you know, I am given this award or like I go to InfoComm and I feel respected and loved. And then I go back to work and they're like, oh, it's you, you know, not to say that I'm not like appreciated at all, but like I'm the face they're used to versus going out in the world, and it's just different.
Absolutely. I totally get it. Like, I feel like between like InfoComm and everything, HETMA and stuff like that, and it's like, it's Aaron. And then I come back here and they're like, yeah, all right, great. Get back to work. Like,
yeah, they're like, oh, great, Aaron, this classroom has never worked.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, let's jump into the stories that we read this month. And so we'll start with one from avnetwork.com, Go Big or Go Home. The Sid Roth Ministries had invested in an expandable VR environment for its production studio. Huge, massive DVLED video wall that they put in. So is there a future for VR in higher ed, and what might that look like?
It's interesting the way this article is put together, because it sort of, came off to me as more your background kind of, versatility sort of. And to me, it was almost like when I saw it say VR, and then it was more like, well, this is sort of this is like a green screen version 3.0, I guess you could say. So right. I could see where there could be a big use for that. You set your background up with these displays. You can choose whatever you want to put back there. You can adjust the lighting, make it all nice. It gives you versatility for different instructors or people coming in and doing videos. So I certainly could see that background having some kind of place and applicability in our environment. But we know VR goes beyond that. But I thought, the article and the set, my God, that looked just amazing. So, I think there's a place for it.
I think it really depends on like if something like that is going to become the norm or become something that is used widely, because I think that's a big piece of where we make decisions in higher ed, because our ultimate goal is to educate students and prepare them for careers, right? So if there's an opportunity there to prepare students for technology that like is used normally, then sure. But like if it's gonna be this one-off, very cool, admittedly, use case, then maybe not.
Right. I could almost see it in that type of thing in film schools, or as a way to get these film scenes done in a potentially more economic fashion, as opposed to having to build full sets or, create all these different things. They could just do it all digitally. But yeah, are there any other types of VR though that could be used beyond just sort of like a background type setup?
Well, I mean, I think I was on the same page as Rob when I started reading that, and I was like, where's the VR aspect of this? This is just a really big video wall. I think it offers a very interesting experience, and maybe, again, I don't know if it's VR as much as an immersive experience, where you could definitely see art being done in here, theater being done here, music being done in here. And some of the pictures immediately kind of made me think about the Sphere in Vegas and this whole different way that I think events are going now about this entire immersive experience that an area, a building, a space is designed for that full immersive experience. So I think it's got some place, like anything. I mean, we all know, unless you've got some big grant or some big program to move this forward, it's a while before most schools afford something like this. But I thought it was a cool experience, and that's what it made me start thinking about art and music performances and venues.
Yeah, I was thinking about it and, how we might be able to use it in medical education and demonstrating different things. But I think it's maybe over the top, at least for right now, more than what we need. There are other ways to do what we're wanting to do. And this is such an edge case situation. We're trying to make our classrooms as simple as possible for the instructors and for the students. So the education is the emphasis, not the technology in front of them. We want the technology to kind of blend into the environment they're in. The technology is important. It's what we do, but it's not the end result we're after. It is a pathway to the end result, to the education that we're doing. And I can see this as much of a distraction as anything else, at least at this time, for how they're using it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, there's always that piece of it's great to have those experiences when you can't afford or put in place the real experience, right? Oh boy, you could walk through the ancient ruins on this screen, which is cool, and you might see some things, but really the way to see the ancient ruins is go to the ancient ruins and see them. And so I think it's I agree, Ernie.
But we have to keep in mind too, like to what Scott was speaking to, in that that it could be used for events and these larger experiences, because a big part of the college experience is not just the learning, but also the tertiary learning that happens when you're involved in activities and actively doing things. That's why I love doing events in higher ed so much. So if we could take events to that higher level with technology like this, I also wonder if it could be used for something like esports.
That was one area where I thought it might be applicable, but that's not something we have on a health science campus.
You don't have like an operation game there, Ernie, that has made it to AV yet?
They actually have several sets of the operation game in the student lounge. I find that very interesting.
Well, July 16th was Artificial Intelligence Appreciation Day, which, as of this recording, was only a couple days ago. So let's talk about Scott's article on ravepubs.com, AI in higher ed. Do you want to tee that one up for us, Scott?
Sure. Anybody in this group or anybody who listens to these podcasts know that I think AI is fascinating, amazing, extremely powerful. The future, we'll all be dealing with it. But I also think that in many ways, it's like every other technology we've ever seen, in the sense that you have to apply it in a way that makes sense for your environment and really thinking about it. So one of the examples I gave in there is and I think many of us started doing our own installs years ago. We do our own programming. And there's a reason for that. It's not simply to save money. I have to do some math, see if it even saves money. It's so that we know those rooms in and out. If there's a problem, we can replace something. If there's a problem, we can change the programming instantly. And so to say, boy, AI is so cool. It could write a program for a room and design a room. but you've now lost the point of what we were doing and our ability to solve it very quickly, right? And so if we were to simply say, boy, we can replace 50 rooms this year because AI is going to program it for us and design it for us, that doesn't fit our strategy. And we might have to rethink our strategy, and maybe the day is going to come where AI will actually fix it for us or tell us exactly what to go do to fix it. But at the moment, it's not there. And so it's just really to think about, as exciting as it is, as powerful as it is, it needs to fit the strategy that your school has, whether it's AV, IT, or business operations.
Absolutely. I think the fear that people have of AI taking jobs, I think is tempting as it is for those who make, who are the money makers, to replace people with these solutions. It definitely seems like that's the wrong move, because you still need that human element to make it all go and to really go in the right direction.
And Scott covered that. AI doesn't need to replace people, but it can make the people more productive if they're using it properly. We've had this discussion many times over the years. Scott and I have talked about it, and we've talked about it on this podcast about, exactly what Scott just said. We design our classrooms so that we can properly maintain and operate them, and we don't have downtime in our classrooms that we have if we're having to wait for whoever installed it for us to find time to come out and service it or explain to us what we need to do. If we design it, we install it, we know, when the instructor tells us what the problem is, or a student says this is not working properly, we know right where to go to try to fix it. And if we're doing these ourselves, if we're creating our own rooms, we've probably created 2 or 3 just alike. So maybe we can move that class to another space real quick that's going to do exactly what they need and not have to train the instructor a new way to teach his class. So I think AI, like we were saying, can enhance our tools. It can be a tool in our toolbox, but it doesn't need to replace the physical intelligence that we have.
That's a really good point. Let me take it a step further, where I'm, pushing for AI a little more, but also AI does not have hands. AI is not physical. AI does not have that human physicality at this point. Of course, in the Terminator movies, they change that around, which is scary. But so there always will be the need for the human part of it, whether it's from the design, installation, maintenance, whatever. Where I think, and as you said, AI can be an effective tool is, in some of our systems, we have the ability to check our rooms, check on the status of laser projectors now, even though some of us still have bulbs, but and give us a system overview of maintenance. Imagine AI, instead of us having to look up where we ordered something, when it's supposed to be replaced, how we're supposed to order it. AI has the possibility of doing all that part for us, which isn't really taking away a lot of what we're doing. It's just making what we're doing a little more efficient as far as replacing and ordering and doing that kind of stuff. So I think there's a place for it. But yeah, I completely agree. The human touch factor, design, beginning soup to nuts, is still, better in our hands for the foreseeable future.
Britt, I know that event support is so very hands-on, but do you see potentially there a space in there for some sort of AI assistance?
Possibly, and especially on the communication end of things, right? I'm sure there are ways that we can automate, or even, you give Chat GPT the right prompt and it can even just fix things up for you that you've already started to make sure that you're communicating well. So I think some of those even more human-like factors it could help with. One thing I'm curious about, though, is that, to Scott's article, it was, you have to consider why you're using AI and figuring out how it fits. And that's what we're all speaking to and stuff. But what's interesting to me about AI is it's not super intuitive, right? It's something that you have to learn how to use. So how would you say that you all are like learning how to effectively use this new tool?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess where we are using AI, and probably all of us are without even thinking about it, cameras, auto framing cameras. We're not going to see a camera that's going to, or an AI right away that's going to replace a live production system, you know. But as far as for an instructor just walking back and forth across the stage or in front of the classroom, using the camera that can learn the person's movements and keep them framed, I think that's a great use of AI right there, or monitoring the sound and keeping it at a good level. But we basically have to teach the device how to do it. A lot of times, some of them are coming out of the box, but some of them we're having to set the parameters of things, and we're learning it. And I think some of our techs are actually getting smarter as they're learning how to set these things up and use them. But it's not something that's going to, I think, like we said, completely replace the people. It's going to make us more effective in what we're doing. And we need to realize that and remember that, well, like we've all said, we need that human touch still to make it the way we need it to be right now.
Yeah, I think for me, mostly I've been using AI for communication type situations. And it's been really about honing in on the prompt and trying to figure out like how exactly I need to phrase things to get what I really want. And I've been kind of surprised, though, at some of the garbage that I've just thrown at it. And it has really just come up with some really nice things that even I will admit that I'm sure this episode will be titled by AI. And I basically just copied all of my notes for the episode into it and was like, hey, come up with a pithy title for this podcast episode. And beauties, absolute beauties. So it's, it's definitely getting smarter itself, but part of it is really like knowing how to put in the correct prompt to get what you want out of it. So I haven't quite gotten to the point of working on programming using it, but and I think that's going to be very prompt heavy in figuring out what the right things are to input.
I will say we just had a little bit of fun with ChatGPT, and that we took a list of products and we said, build a classroom system with this, and it matched a program we had written. Did the drawings didn't actually do drawings, but it described the system exactly the way we had built it. So it's getting there. I'm not ready to trust it with classroom design right now because, there are too many variables that you don't see until you get in the room and start installing. But we did find it to be very close to, to what we would be doing anyway. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's one of those things that maybe even in the future will be a job for people, is just to be an AI editor so that they'll go through and give a once over to make sure that that's what it is, or just to tweak and transform the couple of things that are like, oop, that's not quite right, but then push it forward.
So don't want Hal in the classroom yet.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I mean, that's just interesting to that point of like, who's gonna teach the students how to use AI?
And then the last article we've got today is from AV Magazine. QSYS launches UK experience and training facility. So that leads us to training for us higher ed tech managers and whatnot, where do we get our training? Like, what is ideal for us?
Well, I think a big conference ended about a month ago, and I know that we had a person from our team go. And when I talked to him when they came back, he said, and I've been a big advocate of this all along, I spent about half a day on the show floor and the rest of the time in sessions and training and learning. We know Infocom's a big one. Other regional workshops, but the other one is, and I think a lot of them are even getting better, is the vendor training.
I will say, looking at this one, we've just started really looking at QSIS, and my team's been going through the training. I've gone through some of it, and it's enjoyable. I don't know if any of y'all have gone through the QSIS training, but it's one of the best put together ones, and you don't fall asleep in them.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a hybrid of what's going on. So, their vendors, Legrand has been great for us. They will organize like a regional training for certain aspects, whether it's AV over IT and stuff, actually come to your institution. You have people from other educational institutions coming in together, learning together, like Infocom is great. And then there's also the online option, which is certainly very useful because some people learn better in different ways than others. So, it's a little bit of everything that I think is involved with our training.
Yeah, I found this to be a really great move by QSIS to put together this center, especially in light of the fact that one of the Trons has been kind of decreasing their teaching or in learning centers. So it's interesting then to see another company starting to build that side back up. Because I feel I love that, the pandemic sort of pushed in online, training to, be more available. But at the same time, it just can't replace some of that in-person, hands-on training. So it's it'll be interesting to see if what the trend is moving forward for other companies.
Yeah, I think workshops, hands-on workshops are, at least for my type of learning, that's how I've always learned. And I can do it a whole lot better if you hand me the components and tell me to put it together than reading an article on how to do it.
I also just thought this was very respectful of end users, because it seemed like it was an area for what they would consider end users to get the hands-on experience and learning. And so the fact that they dedicated a space for people like that to do that, I thought was really cool.
Absolutely. And it's keeping in mind that there are people who learn in different ways is quite nice. Because there's some people who learn by hearing or by seeing or by doing. And so to sort of be able to address any of those types of learning methods is, I think, really smart.
It always surprises me when you see companies going away from training. Because I can tell you the programming training I did with Crestron in New Jersey, 12, 15 years ago, it was an experience, right? You went down there, you were in it for the day, you went out to dinner at night, you bought into what you were learning and the products that they were showing you how to program, right? I mean, they're going to be smart. They're going to teach you how to program. They're going to show you the new products as they're teaching you how to program. So, I mean, in many ways, that training that they provided to me 15, 20, however long ago it was, has probably led to us being a Crestron house. So it helps us, it helps them. It's training and marketing and sales all in one shot.
Are there any other types of training methods that maybe don't necessarily exist currently that you think might be helpful for our vertical?
Well, if you ever remember the bad movie Johnny Mnemonic, at some point, maybe we'll just be able to upload stuff into our brains. That's looking way into the future, but thinking a little out of the box there. But yeah, I don't know. I think, the three major, whether you have the regional center where you're training on-site, hands-on, or whether, it's at an institution, you bring a rep that teaches you something, or you're doing online stuff. I don't know what other types of training there are. I mean,
I don't know if I'd call it training, but I'll make a shout out to the higher ed AVIT Slack channel, which, in some ways it's training, right? You say, I have this problem I'm trying to solve, and people help you solve it. And it might be product agnostic. So in many ways that is training. And so networking in some ways is training. It helps you solve a problem and learn something as you move along. So I think networking and all of us knowing each other is somehow going to be training, even though you're not sitting in a classroom or staring at a computer screen following the program.
Absolutely. There's definitely something to be said by, learning from your peers and just figuring out what worked and what didn't for them.
I don't know if this exists, but I think it would be cool if there could be a combination of the physical and digital. Like if a company is willing to open up a training for just a certain amount of people, and then they send those people that are signed up the actual hardware. So it's like while we're talking about it on the webinar, you can physically interface with it because we sent it to you. That would be cool.
It would be good, and some will do it in a limited fashion anyway. Maybe it may end up being like one-on-one, and then you have so many days to play with the device, and you've got to send it back, or they'll send you. I've even had them where they send us the labels to send it to the next person in line.
Ooh, I was going to say what we were talking about earlier in its true sense is maybe the VR AR stuff is applicable here too. True VR, where you can physically see the images in 3D, and AR, where maybe you're in augmented reality, where you can, add that into the training repertoire.
Yeah, those sorts of things would be really neat to do. But then it's also then getting the people who can create the environments to have this virtual world and training room. But that would be kind of super cool. Like get to play with certain equipment or build a rack when you're holding on to your little Joy-Cons or whatever.
I do appreciate your description of what sounds like the world's most boring video game.
Aren't those Sims? Is that what a Sim is? No, I'm just...
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would be way fun to our type of people. But yeah, probably anybody else would be like, what is that?
They never sell it though.
Yeah, I'm going into the basement to build a rack tonight. So I'm so excited.
They have, virtual banking and farming and stuff. So why not AV rack building or system designs? All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode. Ernie, how can people reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
And how about you, Rob?
Same place, Rob Raspberry, LinkedIn.
And Scott?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Threads now, if anybody's into Threads. And of course, Rave Pubs.
And Britt, thank you so much for joining us today. And how can people get in touch with you?
Thank you for having me. It was very fun. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Twitter.
Excellent. And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter at Smirin_off_ice. And as always, thanks for joining us this month, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.